Awotan Ongtan Akia. Awotan Ongtan Lisa. Awotan Ongtan Derek. Awotan Ongtan Charlene. Yes, Shamset, you are allowed to say that. She said that's my jam. This one's my favorite too. Awotan Ongtan Wajet. Onke Ma'at, everyone. Greetings, greetings. Dua Netter. So glad that you all could join us this Sunday morning for our regularly scheduled communion service. Dua Netter. So we're going to go ahead and get started with our Sunday prayer. And then we will proceed into the roll call. And then we will share our announcements and get into our message for the day. So first off, I'll ask if everyone can please join me in our daily prayer by saying Amatu and Panatir, Sau ek tu emint in Panatir, Au duauma, Kedi pa heru. The translation, give yourself to Netta daily, keep yourself for Netta daily, and do it tomorrow as you do it today. We give homage to the Creator, who is like our Father and who is like our Mother, who is everything that we can perceive and everything that we cannot perceive, who is everything yet is no thing, who comes to us in the form of the Nataru Ra, who is the light of the heavens, the light of the inner planes, as well as the light of our lives, who shines the light for us on the path of Ma'ati, which is the path of truth, justice, righteousness, and harmonious balance, who comes to us in the form of the light of vitality, giving us the strength and the endurance to live and act upon that which we know to be true. Homage to you, the one who shines in and through us as a beacon of light for those who are blind to the facts of their place, their position, and their responsibility in the divine scheme of things. May we be Ma'akeru, true of thought, word, and deed, to our highest reality, and in our moments of crises in the dark nights of the soul, when it appears that everyone and everything else has let us down, so it is, and so shall it be. Everyone say, Amen Ma'at, Ma'akeru. All right. So we're going to get into this roll call today. And oops, as Nasuwt mentioned, we already saw a couple people diving in. We good. Diving into the roll call already. I saw Lower East Side, Manhattan already in the building. And I saw Columbus, Ohio already chiming in. So, and now I see Newark, Delaware. Uncle Maat Nejmet. So I know there's more of you in the chat. So just want to find out where the rest of y'all are hailing from. Greetings from Philadelphia. That's what's up. From the planet of Brooklyn, Yonkers, New York, Spartanburg, South Carolina, Richmond, Virginia, Cleveland, Ohio, Bronx, New York City, Newcastle, Delaware, Lincoln, Nebraska, Oakland, California, Hamden, Connecticut, more Newcastle, Delaware, Long Island, New York, Connecticut is in the building. Yes, Ma'akaru. Westfield, New Jersey is here. Duaneta. Baltimore, Maryland. Miami, Florida. Nice. Onke Ma'at, everyone. Humble, Texas is here. Duaneta. Yes. And Houston, Texas is also here. That's what's up. Give thanks. Yes.
Chicago.
Duaneta.
Indy City.
Yeah. Flint, Michigan is here.
Okay.
Madison, New Jersey. Yes. Duaneta. Another person hailing from Philly.
All right.
That's what's up. All right, Duaneta. So, again, we're just really continue to be grateful every Communion Sunday that we get to connect with you all far and wide, all across this nation, sometimes internationally. I didn't see none of our international supporters chime in today. Yeah. That's all right. They'll be on later, or they'll be watching later, what have you. But just the opportunity to be able to make these connections, regardless of distance and space, etc., is just really amazing. Duaneta for that. So announcements. You guys know we have been talking and so excited about a new ambiance. The album that Nasuwt Biti Sankhu Kheper has recently completed and made available. Thank you so much for your support of the deluxe bundle. We sold every single one of the deluxe bundles. Nasuwt asked for you all to finish buying them at the last communion, and you all bought all of them that day. The rest of them that day, they were all gone. All of the deluxe bundles have now been shipped, hopefully delivered. I'm really hopeful that you all are happy and excited about having that music. And some of the feedback we've gotten so far about people who got the bundles or who purchased the digital download on our website has been really phenomenal. And just, the opportunity to be able to use that music in your meditative space, in your prayer space, in your ritual space, when you're house cleaning, when you're doing yoga, when you're doing martial arts, just being able to have those divine sounds permeate your home is just really incredible. One of our initiates did say that she almost went into trance driving, so please be careful. Yeah. Don't be driving. Don't be going into trance while you driving. No, okay? Don't do that. No meditation while driving. But I'm actually really excited and proud to announce that we recently released the audio we use CD Baby as our distributor to release the audio through like the streaming platform. So like you guys who are subscribers to Tidal, subscribers to like Amazon Music, or Spotify, and all of those different streaming platforms or places where you can go, iTunes even, where you can go to purchase music and then use your preferred platform to play music. It's available right now through all of those platforms, and I'm just really excited about that. That's actually just really cool that we've been able to do that, to be able to get the music out there. Those of you who have the CD and the digital download, when you get the digital download, you then have the music to be able to play it anywhere on any platform at any capacity, any platform that will allow you to play local files, play it on your computer, play it on your phone, etc. But some of you have like your preferred platforms that you want to use, and so now you can also get the music through those platforms, and you can purchase the full album of A New Ambiance by searching A New Ambiance or by searching Sankhu Kheper in those platforms. I think you can also on Instagram, when you create a reel, there's an option to add music, and I think A New Ambiance is an option to add music to your Instagram reel, which is super super cool. I know, right? Like,
So like promote it. Let's make it a hit. Yeah.
so we're just so excited, and we just hope you all continue to support the music. The track we was listening to at the top of when we first started is the 6th track. It's called The Divine Cycle, Pa'ut et Netru. And so I hope you all enjoy the sounds that we've been sharing with you, the samples that we've been sharing with you, and now you know where to go to get them. You can go to our website to purchase a physical copy of the CD. You can purchase the access to the files in a digital download from our website, and you can also stream them through your preferred streaming platform.
No excuses.
No excuses. Right. So do on that for that. We out here. We on iTunes, so we iTunes official. Do on that. So that's the big announcement for today, which I'm super happy to be able to share with you all. And now I'll turn it over to you.
Okay. So I want to give a congratulations to the newly inaugurated Royal Court. And that's important because every 5 or 6 years, us as a temple, we usually experience like a growth spurt. Sometimes we lose a couple people, but we oftentimes gain 10 to 15 more for every 1 or 2 that we lose and stuff. So what happens, like in the midst of this whole pandemic, we're actually in a growth spurt. So certain people have to fall back. The universe is open up so we can actually expand and stuff. And it fits a necessity. Over 10 years ago, when we inaugurated the royal priesthood, that was addressing a necessity that was going on in our spiritual, that was presenting itself in our spiritual community. And then 6 years after that, we inaugurated the Suruj Tawi. And Suruj Tawi is the coming together of temples that practice different aspects of traditions of the Kemetic tradition. So it was a coming together or a show of unity of different temples, in that we've shown and proved to the community that you could have unity without necessarily uniformity.
Yes.
I mean, so we could have variations of expression of different Kemetic traditions. And then now, 7 years after that, we inaugurate the Royal Court. Now, the Royal Court is not priests or priestesses, but it is a circle of intimates. And these circle of intimates are now making their contributions in supporting how we continue presenting levels and standards of excellence to you all as a community. And, like sometimes we have to remind you that we're actually building a community. We're not a study group.
Yeah.
And so you need to get in where you fit in. At least you need to get in while we're inviting you, because one day we might not be inviting you. I know it sounds crazy, but the goal of all communities is to be self-sustaining and self-generating, so we can move further away from the proselytation model, because that sounds religious when you're going out there trying to get people, trying to get converts. But there will be a time when your community generates its own people. For instance, the Asara Society. A lot of people think they fell off. They didn't fall off. They have several generations in there producing their own generation, so they don't have to push their cause to the people no more. They're their own nation. They're their own tribe. And ultimately, that is the goal. Stuff. So on that note, we have some serious business to talk about today, because last communion was that was Hinek Maat, right?
2 was Hinek Maat.
So Hinek Maat, that was one of our holy days, one of our holidays, and was unfortunate is that on the verge of that, on the very weekend of that, our spiritual community was attacked. Not physically, but ideologically, we were attacked by a member of the so-called conscious community. And it's disheartening why people do that. Why they do that, I don't know. That belongs in the mysteries of the universe, why people do silly stuff like that. But just so you all know, so I'll put you up on the conversation if you don't know what it is by now. Because I know sometimes us as spiritual people, we like to believe that we're above that. But that type of conversation, whether we like it or not, whether we think we're above it or not, it affects us as a community. So my job and my position as leadership is to address it, at least intellectually, and not be petty about it. So you should all know, like every 2 years or so, members from the so-called scholastic tier of the community, because the conscious community is a collective. There is no just conscious community. There's tiers of the conscious communities. There's a health tier. There's a nationalistic tier. The activist tier. The scholastic tier, the scientific tier. So it's different tiers. We're the spiritual part of the community, but for whatever reason or so, they feel like they want to try to bully or beat up on us every once in a while. So we're gonna deal with some of it. Every now and then they make these accusations that we don't teach real history over here, which is patently false. We do teach real history, but we teach it in the context of what it is that we're doing and what it is that we're developing. That's clear, right?
True.
They also accuse us of not teaching science over here, which is patently false. We teach science in context to what it is that we're doing and what it is that we're developing.
True.
And now that's said, I'm not a history teacher and I'm not a scientist. Let that sink in. So why am I being charged to teach history and science and I'm not a history teacher or scientist? And to be sarcastic, none of those brothers are either. So the ironic thing is, I listen to those brothers. I listen to all of their presentations and I learned some things, even through all the ego and the subterfuge or the immaturity that, because it's most of the times it's men. This is going to be a lesson in manhood today for the men, because it's the men that's primarily doing this stuff. And the women have their stuff too, but it has nothing to do with this arena that we're talking about right now. So I'm addressing the men. I'm going to deal with it as a man and show you how things are supposed to be dealt with without being petty. Now, I learned from these brothers. Some things I agree with and some things I don't agree with. And that's life. We're adults. We don't have to agree on everything. Just because you believe strongly in something doesn't mean that it's true. It doesn't mean that I have to believe in it. It doesn't mean you have to believe in me or what it is. But the problem is, even though a lot of us listen to them in all of their presentations, they don't listen to us. They don't think we have anything of worth to add to the conversation. So in result of that, they go and slander the community and they give disinformation to the community. And that's a problem. I know some people be like, oh, let's leave it alone. Just be above. Don't feed into that. And I would have to support the session of Nasuwt Jetty. I seen him on Facebook expressing his consternation about the issue. Because these members are disrespecting elders in our spiritual community. They're disrespecting even elders in the scholastic community, and he appears to be bothered. And I second his opinion on it. Some people are telling him, leave it alone. They're small stuff. And he made a statement by saying that just because you bury your head in the sand doesn't make the problem go away. It makes me remember a quote from, I think it might be Patah Tepet, said, if you don't punish wrongdoing, then who will?
Right.
So when you get to this point, when you start asking, why isn't our spiritual community growing at the rate you think it's supposed to be? Maybe it's because we let things like this go unchecked. Right. For every step that we're trying to make forward, now we're finding out that there is a whole anti-comedic movement going out because we let that stuff go unchecked. Mm-hmm. So in doing studies, you'll come across an image of certain Nasuwts in a certain pose called the King's Pose. And the King's Pose is when the Nasuwt there's a person that's kneeling before him and he has his hair in his hand and he's holding up what's called a hedge, a white mace, and he's there to smite the enemies. So now two functions of the Nasuwt is he's the highest priest of the land, but he's also the commander-in-chief. So he has to be the defender of the nation. So today we have to metaphorically chop heads. Because sometimes you got to do that. We can't keep letting it, we will not be bullied. Not on my watch. Not on my watch. I'm not going to be bullied. So as a man, we got to deal with it directly. So I have to deal with and directly say the name of the brother Shaka Akmos. See, we're not going to be petty. I got to say the name of the brother Shaka Akmos. I met the brother. We were cool and I thought we were cool. We have no issue that I know of. So he made a presentation against my brother Jabari last week, which I felt like was a deplorable presentation. It was unbecoming. It was unacceptable for the behavior of us as men. Is unacceptable for what the community needs to see from us as men, especially men 50-something years old. All of us Me, Jabari himself, we're 50 plus years old. We don't need to be acting like we 21, trying to act like Tupac. You know, remember Tupac died at like 23, 24. So he's immortalized in that level of immaturity that everybody appears to look up to so much. No disrespect to Tupac. I like him. I like his music, but he wasn't the best example of manhood. And so we have a lot of 50, 60-year-olds trying to imitate Tupac's standard of manhood. And that stuff doesn't fly in the spiritual community. It doesn't even fly in the traditional African community. So we keep having this dialogue about developing our community, African this, we need to do this, but yet it keeps getting offset with this off behavior primarily coming from the men in this matter. So I'm going to demonstrate how we're supposed to deal with the issue without being petty. So he has the right to have his opinion and have his concerns, but we're going to deal with his concerns without the ad hominem attacks. I don't have to attack his character or make him look bad. He's going to do that on his own. You could disagree, but there's a way that you disagree. Your character gets exposed in how you disagree. So I don't have to say nothing bad about him personally. The community is going to judge both of us as men and who's really about what it is that we say we're about. Nobody's perfect, but I'm saying for myself as well as all men, as well as all women, we have to be better. Y'all all quiet in here. I'm not mad. I'm just kind of like passionate.
The
about
chat
this.
quiet too. I was expecting to see more in the chat. Like, hold
I'm
up.
getting off. I
They're
ain't
like,
getting to hear all this. Where's the knowledge? Where's the history? Where's the science at, brother? So the point is, we're priests and priestesses in here. When people come to us, they're not coming to us for a PowerPoint presentation. They're not coming to us for lectures. People come to us and be like, yo, how do I raise my family in this? Do you have a naming ceremony for me? Is there a house cleansing ceremony? Can you give me a spiritual cleanse? Can you help me with the direction of my life? Those things that I said, all those brothers and those critics that's doing all that criticism, they're unqualified to do all of those things.
That's right.
That's not a cheap shot. That's just a fact. Because we deal with Sankhu, which means to go back. Not just to go back, but to go back and fetch it. Not go back and study it. Not go back and teach it. Go back and fetch it. And in fetching it, yes, you study. And as we study, yes, you're going to learn some things. And before we teach, when we get to the point after we fetched it and after we studied it, when we get to the point in which we teach, we'll be teaching what we know, not what we believe.
Right.
We teach what we know because we lived it, and our living it gives us our experience, and our experience gives us the authority to know because we're the ones doing the ritual, not these brothers. They're calling it spookism. They don't even believe in it, so they have no authority to know what's what or what's not. They have no authority to understand why it is we do what we do or why the reconstruction or adjustments that we've made. They have no qualified opinion. They don't even have an educated opinion because they have no experience in ritual. And let us not get it twisted. Being comedic, being spiritual, being African is about being in tune, in touch with nature. It ain't about studying books. It's about having an active access and involvement with nature. It ain't about how do you use this to get your job? How do you use this to get a mate? It's about being in alignment with nature. What is it going to do for us as our people? Get in line with nature and you'll see what it does for the people. Right. We've already seen and experienced what not being in tune with nature does. So the challenge is to get in tune with it, and you're going to get exactly what you deserve based off of your alignment. You cannot be dishonest with nature. You're going to get the exact print out based off of your alignment. So, and you cannot lie with nature based on how you carry yourself. You could say all the lip service you want. You could dress up, wear the beads and all that stuff. If you ain't got to where you need to be, it's because you haven't earned it. You haven't resonated on that level with it. But we're the ones doing the ritual. So I have to address it because, he had said my name. On the first watch, I saw it and I thought he was being petty, addressing Jabari and his thing. And I'm like, okay. All the rest of us were collateral damage in that conversation. Then upon second listening, he said the Temple of Anu's name. And that was a problem. He didn't say my name. He said Temple of Anu name. The issue with that is a lot of people in the community don't know my name directly. So when you say the Temple of Anu, you're talking about me. So I got to deal with it. I have the right to defend myself. I have the right to defend my legacy in the temple and my people and my spiritual community. And so that's what it is. That's what this is all about. So our name got mentioned along with Shrine of Maat, along with Queen Afua, along with Baba Haru. So I'm here to defend the honor of all of those people as I'm defending myself, because that's my people. That's what we're supposed to do. This circle of people is disrespecting elders. I don't care if what Baba said that they thought it was okay to disrespect them. We protect our elders here.
Too. We definitely do.
Right or wrong, we protect our, and it's time for the community to see that. It's time for them to see it, and it's time for them to see that we stand on that stuff. So our name got mentioned in the same sentence with fake and made up. Now, something fake is made up plus patently false, and my name should never be in the same sentence with that word. Now, there's made up. Something that's made up could be very useful, and sometimes something that's made up could be very destructive. The science that you all know as science is made up by white folks. It's their reinterpretation and their reconstruction of what it is that we came up with. What you call technology is white folks stuff made up. Is their reinterpretation of what it is that our ancestors were doing. And check this out. We are a reconstructionist. We're reconstructing what our ancestors reconstructed. Listen again, we're reconstructing what our ancestors reconstructed, because guess what? Our ancestors made it up.
Yeah, exactly.
Let that breathe.
That's right.
So if these are principles of nature, scientific principles of nature, and you overlay the culture over in the form of theology and cosmology, that means somebody made some stuff up. So yes, it's made up, but the better word is reconstructed, because we're experienced in ritual. So now he made a few statements. He said, there is no Maat, and the king makes up Maat. The king decides what is Maat. That was one thing. He said about spirituality, he said yoga, there's no comedic yoga, or it's fake. What we do is fake. No comedic yoga. Readings and all that stuff is fake. And he was asked about spirituality. He said there was no spirituality. He said Kemety was about business. And he said they didn't have time for all of that. He said, nevertheless, the king definitely didn't have time for it, but Kemety was about business. Now, Hemet, I know you had some thoughts about it when we were discussing it, and you had some thoughts about it you want to share?
Too. Sure, I'll share. First off, I'll start by acknowledging that I didn't watch the video directly, because stuff like that makes my blood boil. I can't do it. Like, I know my limitations. I get too angry. So Nasuwt watches, and then he reports back and lets me know what I need to know.
And then she gets angry.
And then I still get angry. I still get angry, but I can't, I can't, like, some of the stuff that be going on in these debates, these so-called debates, where we debate in our own, like, we're supposed to be brothers and sisters. These are the same people who we shaking hands with and we all cool with, and everything else. And the next thing you know, because nobody's talking about your name, and you want more prestige, and you want more platform, and you want people to be watching you, all of a sudden you're creating beefs that don't need to be created, when all that could have happened, all that needed to happen was a phone call, right? So I can't be, like, my energy, I'm just like, I don't know, bruh, like, I can't. So Nasuwt came and he told me about it, and my first reaction was that people who say something like that, if you say that Kemety was all about business, it lets me know that either one of two things is happening. One, you're either pretending to be ignorant about our ancestors' culture, or two, you actually are ignorant about our ancestors' culture. So one or the other is true. I will not say which one is true in this instance, but I will say that it's only one of two things that's happening here. Because as Nasuwt acknowledged, we study the culture. Absolutely, we study the culture, which means we have to study the history, which means we have to study the science. But our perspective and the way we approach it is not as historians. It is as people who are living practitioners. We are approaching it in a way by which we are studying. We are literally going back and fetch it, just like Nasuwt just said. And so anybody who is deeply studying and attempting to go back and fetch, meaning not just looking at it as an outsider or studying it as an anthropologist or studying it with curiosity, but you are someone who is actually attempting to immerse yourself in these cultural values and have a deep understanding of who our ancestors were, in order for you to define who it is that you are based on their standard. Like, anyone who's trying to do that, understand that our ancestors did not believe in this separation of church and state. That's a Western concept.
Yeah.
That's a Western, that's European. That's not an African, that's not a part of Kemmunion. That's not a part of the African worldview. The African worldview did not separate economics from politics, from spirituality, from astrology, from astronomy, from agriculture, from science, from mathematics, from writing. That's not how our ancestors operated. Our ancestors did not have no measure of separation. Culture was culture, Ma'at was Ma'at. All of those things were one piece. All of those things was all a part of the singular culture, the singular spiritual belief, the singular religion, the singular metaphysics and metaphoric way that they lived their lives, encapsulated politics, economics, spirituality, astrology, astronomy, mathematics, agriculture, science, etc. All of those things were one thing. So the minute you start saying that, oh, it's just economics, it wasn't any of these other things, that's you choosing to take a Europeanized, westernized perspective on something that is African. That you done already started from the wrong place. Because you looking with white people eyes at something that was for black people in the first place. This was never for white people. Our culture was not for white people, and our culture was not created by white people. So there is no European worldview in it. There is no separation. That whole separation of church and state came because white people was unhappy about the impositions of their church, and they decided that they wanted to create separation in the way that they chose to live their culture. That's not an African thing. And it is really essential, and we've spoken about this before in other communions, it's really essential that we as African people, as Africans in America, who in many ways are raised to have European thoughts, are raised and a culture to have westernized way of thinking and westernized approaches to things, it's really important that when we come into African culture, we do not superimpose Western beliefs and perspectives on African culture. We cannot revise and mix and match and reshape African culture to fit our westernization. What we actually have to do is deprogram ourselves so that we can actually see things with true African vision, the way that our ancestors intended it in the first place. But just to be fair to the situation, yeah, our culture, African culture, comedic culture specifically, is an economic culture. Absolutely it was. Absolutely it is. Even down to the way that we practice the comedic culture in the modern day. This is how I know that someone who is speaking about it don't know what they're talking about, because you never been to the temple. You never been to our workshops. You never been to our rituals. You never been to our classes. You've never been to our Weprin Pet. You've never been to our Feast of Sekhmet. If you have been to any of those things, you would know that the way that we approach things is the same way that our ancestors approached things. Historically, astrologically, astronomically, politically, economically, agriculturally, etc. All of those things, we recognize how they were involved in our ancestral culture, and we bring them forward in a way that makes sense to us in our modern culture. The best example that I could give in how we think about this, or how we see this in action, is thinking about the holiday Weprin Pet. Weprin Pet is a multifaceted holiday. Weprin Pet is economic holiday, it is an astronomical holiday, it is an astrological holiday, it is a spiritual holiday, and it is an agricultural holiday. It's also a political holiday. It's all of those things wrapped up in one. Weprin Pet, for those of you who don't know, is the opening of the comedic year. And the opening of the comedic year is marked astronomically by the rising of Spidet in the eastern horizon at the same time and rising of the sun. Yeah. Okay? And so, first of all, that means that our ancestors were scientific, because astronomy is a form of science which studies the planetary bodies and their movements throughout the cosmos in order to be able to chart and understand the cycles. Our ancestors did that. They studied the planets, they studied the planetary bodies, and they made a direct correlation between the rising of Spidet and the inundation of the flood. And through that demonstrates right there that our ancestors were science, and they marked that occasion through Weprin Pet. So that's the scientific aspect. The astrological aspect of that, because astrology is not just charting the movement of the planetary bodies, but astrology is the process through which we ascribe a spiritual or metaphoric meaning to the observances that we've made in the cosmos. Our ancestors referred to Spadet as the soul of Aset. Aset, we understand to be the Netert who is known as the Great Mother. When we think about the Great Mother, we think about an energy of great devotion, of great nurturing. We think about a mother who is present, who is protective, and who is assuring her child that the child will be taken care of, will be provided for, and will be given the bounty of her breast, right? So when they saw Spadet, they knew that the Neteru were with them. They knew that they would be protected, and they knew that they would be provided for because the soul of Aset had made herself present to them. So again, astronomical and astrological. We also understand that this is agricultural because the rising of Spadet marked that the flood would be coming. So what the people of the land had to do was to prepare for the flood. They had to make sure that the agricultural technology was in place so that when the floodwaters came, the system of irrigation was in place in order to the waters and the nutrients in the waters would get to the place in the land and in the country that it needed to get. Because if you don't have a system that's in place, if you don't have your technology in place, your pipes, your irrigation, etc., all of the things that they needed to have set up, when the flood comes, you just have a flood. But instead, they applied their scientific and mathematical brains to be able to create a system in which that flood will be able to come and to nourish the ground and water the plains and take care of the land in preparation for planting season. They made sure that they were able to use the flood to their benefit, not just, oh, we know this event is coming. No, let's apply our scientific minds, our agricultural minds, to making sure that we are able to use this flood so that we can continue to sustain ourselves as a nation. They also prayed to the divine intelligence of the flood. They prayed to Het Heru because Het Heru is the Netert that represents abundance. And so they prayed, Het Heru, may the flood be abundant. Het Heru, may the mineral content in the waters be abundant. Het Heru, may the seeds be abundant. Het Heru, may the ground be ready and rich to be able to receive this flood. Het Heru, may the bounty that we receive from the results of this flood be abundant. May that we prayed and acknowledged the divine intelligence that's inherent in all things, because just like Neter exists within each and every one of us, Neter exists within the water, Neter exists within the soil, Neter exists within the seed, Neter exists within the plant. So by praying and by meditating and by invoking and speaking to and speaking with the divine intelligence that permeates through all things, they were putting all things in one accord. That's Maat. When I am on one accord with the plant, on one accord with the water, on one accord with the soil, then I can ensure that we will have economic prosperity for the country. Because if we don't have a bountiful flood, then we will not have a healthy planting season, then we will not have a successful harvest, then we will not be able to get through the dry season as a country. So all of that was a part of the dialogue. All of that was part of Weprenpet. Weprenpet was also political, because at Weprenpet, the Nasuwt Biti had to prove that he was still in alignment with the Neteru, that the Neteru still coursed through him, that he still had the power to represent the Neteru, that he still was up for the charge. Because if you have a weak Nasuwt Biti, if you have a weak leader, then it was a sign to our ancestors that you would have a weak nation. Right? And so they made sure that the Nasuwt Biti proved his worth and proved that he continued to act in alignment with Maat and with the Neteru, with the divine intelligence of the universe at Weprenpet. I could go further, but the point is that we understand all of that in the Temple of Anu, right? Like, that's the point. Right. And so when people from the outside watch us and they think that all we're doing is praying without understanding that it's bigger than that, it just goes to show that they don't know what we're talking about. They don't know who we are. They don't know what this legacy is really about, not from the perspective of people who really live this legacy. The truth of the matter is that everything in creation is energy. Money is currency. Money is energy. Money is spirit. Money is... There's a divine intelligence to money, just like there's a divine intelligence to everything else. when you have a sense of openness in your vibration. We were just talking about this the other day. I was sharing with Karheb and the Sint when they were here, about how I was when I was in college, and we was mad irresponsible in college. Let's just keep it about. I was irresponsible. I wasn't. This is my pre-Kemetic days. I was mad irresponsible in my pre-Kemetic days, and so I wasted a lot of money. But I never had fear. I never had fear back then that I wouldn't get more money. I remember being like, I just go to work tomorrow, I'll make more money. Just spend it all and then go make more. And then spend it all and then more will come. Because money is currency. That's and right. As long as you keep the way open, then the currents will flow. Right? The currents will flow. That's all about energy. That's all about how you stay in tune with the divine currency. That's all about how it is that you stay open to the ebb and flow in your life. That's all about how it is that you rebuke fear and rebuke doubt and allow your vibration to attract to you the things that you need so that you never have to. Do you understand what I'm saying? So this is not a conversation. It's not solely a conversation around business. Absolutely. Every time we talk about keeping our vibration high, we're talking about attracting more money, being successful in business, attracting opportunities, having economic prosperity. Because if you are in tune with the universe, there's no reason why you would have to worry about economic prosperity. There's no reason why you would have to worry about abundance, because the soul of Aset provides, right? Because Heru provides, right? Because abundance is part of the divine intelligence that exists in all things. If you are one with the divine intelligence, if you are in alignment with Maat, then of course your economic situation is going to be wonderful. So yeah, ancient Kemet was about economics, but to think even for a second that that's all it was about is to really do a significant disservice to the intelligence and to the understanding of our ancestors and how the amount of time and energy that they spent and they devoted studying the world around them, studying nature and becoming in tune with nature, to say that the result of that was only that they cared about business and money. That's real ridiculous and false. I'll just leave it at that.
Right. See what they done got him at turned up. They thought I was turned up. They not ready. They not ready for both of us to get turned up. We'll bring flame to that community if we stay turned up. We be trying not to bring this side of ourselves out. And what's ironic is a lot of the men I see a lot of bravado from the men, but a lot of people don't know quiet is kept. A lot of men in the temple, we like fighting. It's our favorite pastime, and a lot of the sisters like fighting. It's our favorite pastime, but the people don't need to see that from us. So I just say that for the record, because I won't say it again. So from now on, I say what's understood doesn't need to be said. So then we're gonna calm it down, son, because Kemet's just blaze that like we have 40 minutes. I guess I'm gonna just try to end it off and just try to balance it. So business. So he said the whole thing was about business. Let's break the word down. Business, busyness. So we're talking about movement. We're talking about activity. So when we go to the text, it's talking about at the beginning, the book of evolution, knowing the evolutions of Ra. It said, many were the beings that came forth from my mouth. So we're talking about I think I spoke about it before. I said the existence of nature is work. So he didn't lie when he said it was about the business of business. But a lot of times with these brothers is they try to make you pick this or that when our ancestors knew it was both this and that. So when we talk about business or activity, the temple was a very active place. So yes, there was praying, yes, there was meditation that went on in there, but there was also activity because we had a nation to run. And there was almost a nation, like I think the Temple of Waset had 80,000 priests. That's a little town in itself. So what we have is we have activity and we have the people. We have the nation, and the people have desires, they have wants, and they have needs. And this translates as demand. And then inside the temple and inside the government, you have skilled people to address the needs, desires, and the wants. So you have supply and then you have demand. So the art of meeting that supply and demand is what we call Maat, reciprocation. So there's a reciprocation in goods there's reciprocation of goods, there's reciprocation of services, and for those, there was a period of time when they had physical money because money wasn't always back then. So this whole thing about business wasn't, it doesn't fit for every time period in our history. So yes, there was exchange of coin, and when there was no exchange of coin, then you owed someone. That was called the honor system. For those of us that like movies, we saw evidence of that in the Godfather series, the first Godfather series. Remember, they were coming from Italy to America. They wasn't even accepted as white folks, and they called Italy the mother country. And so what happened is the Italians got together as a community and they formed their own structure, a code within America. And they were like, we got to take care of ourselves because these cats ain't trying to take care of us. So you have this cat called the Godfather, and he's a resourceful man. He's an alpha, a resourceful man. He can make things happen, and people in the community comes to this person and he grants them the favor, and he doesn't charge them anything. They be like, Godfather, how would I ever repay you? Then he goes, don't worry about it. Just know one day when I call upon you, I may call upon you, and you don't know what it's going to be. And you will leave it at that for that movie, because we're not talking about something as nefarious as killing somebody or hiding a murder weapon. That was their business. Maybe sometime it got to be like that, but it was an honor system. Everyone has to earn their keep, so a nation has to be busy. I want to, since we want to keep this educational and not so personal, so we go to what was it? The book of Amenemop, verse 10. It says about this honor system, because the brother made a statement, says there was no Maat or something like that. That Maat was whatever the king decided. It's like, no, if you read these texts, they had a clear code and system. It wasn't just something the ruler just made up at his whim. When you have that ruler was performing what's known as Tawi, the unification of upper and lower Kemet. When you have a king, is usually coming after an intermediate period, which is a time of unclear leadership and rulership. So this Nasuwt Biti, he unites the South, people in the South, with the people from the North, and that's called Tawi. That is his job. So when he does that, he has to set order, and order is the word Maat. So yes, Ma'at is the thing that the king does, but it doesn't disqualify the order of the land. I hope y'all understand. That's supposed to be common sense. So stop letting these people put us in position that you got to pick one interpretation over the other. It's both. Well, I think the Christians talk about it. There's the letter of the law and there's the spirit of the letter. And these cats be missing comprehension of what they're reading. So anyway, about this honor system, it say, if you find a large debt against the poor person, divide it into 3 parts. Forgive 2 and let 1 stand. That's a code. And it's written, that's what they were following. So if you owe me $300 and you ducking and dodging me, you're like, man, Negro, just give me 100. I forgive 2, but give me 100, because you cannot go free. Everyone has to earn their keep. Everyone has to work. The lion has to work to get the food. They got to strategize and they got to hunt. The hippopotamus got to do it. For those who are vegan, even the plant that's in the ground has to work to come up, to get out that ground, to get that sunlight. Plants and trees are bending at the beginning of the day. They got to stand upright to be in that sun. So everyone has to work. Everyone has to earn their keep. So no, you can't be on a welfare system all your life. It's okay to be weak, but you're supposed to get your footing and then be a productive member of society. That's supposed to be the spirit of what he was saying, but he was trying to diminish the spirituality in it by saying that. Because what happens is, a lot of these brothers, we're starting to make an impact with this spiritual stuff, and now people understand that there's standards to be lived by, and a lot of these brothers don't want to be held by the standard to the very thing that they think they're representing, with the names, with the dress. They got comedic names, the dress, and they singing songs. Everything is coming, got logos, all comedic. Now there's a standard. Now they want to divorce themselves from the spirituality and be like, oh no, it's no religion, it was science. Oh no, there's no Maat code, that was what the king decided. Like, no, I'm not letting them dumb down our legacy. No, now they saying, no, there was no yoga, no, there was no meditation. So now every other nation on the planet got this meditation spiritual system except us. So all the things that we said over the past 40 years that we've influenced all these other nations to do, now all Southern Africans don't do it. Now all Southern Africans can't think. We can't meditate.
Right.
Come on now. So he also said, because they were busy, I feel like he was implying making money. He didn't say those words, so I won't put false words into his mouth like he be doing us over here, or they be doing it, because it's not just that, brother. It's a lot of them. So he said they didn't have time for all the praying, meditating, and chanting. He said definitely not the king. So we go to what's the book of Merikari, page 427, or it's 427 in the Maat book. Watch this. It says, put on your sacred sandals, go to the temple, enter the sanctuary, eat the bread, renew the libations on the altar, and add to the offerings. Take good care of your monuments as a duty of your power. So did that sound like somebody who didn't have time? That there was too much hustle and bustle? Remember, there's the law, there's the letter, according, to get inspired by the Christians. There's the letter, and then there's the spirit of the letter. So we're talking about the comprehension. Can you read the spirit of this text when it said, put on your sacred sandals? Sacred sandals were white. Our ancestors wore white. He took a cheap shot about us wearing white. He marginalized us wearing white. And my thing is, like, you will find yourself hard pressed to find any picture or any depiction of an ancient Kemetic Kemite wearing anything else other than white. You will always find them wearing white or off white, and they usually wear accent colors, but you're not going to find pretty much no one with a green suit on or a blue suit on or whatever. And if you are, that's something very unique. Everyone, for the most part, was, or at least all the depictions that you see, they were wearing white. So white sandals, white ritualistic sandals. It said, put on your sacred sandals. So this is equivalent to getting prepared to go to church. Put on your church and your best suit and stuff like that. Get just your white sandals and wear your white. See, now when you wear white, white causes you to have to move very conscientiously. So you got to walk how you step. And remember, we talking about a culture that's out in the desert. It's dirty, and these cats got white sandals. So this is something being, you got to have some type of etiquette on how you carry yourself. With white, wearing white, you have to watch where you sit, who you with, who you hug, because you know how whites get. You're like, damn, my joint got dirty already. Like, and you thought you was chilling, and your white seemed like it's attractive. So there was a spirit or attitude in this text that's not being actually said. Because you're supposed to know that as an initiate, as a craftsperson, whatever you want to call it, initiates know this stuff. So what happens is, in this community, you got non-initiates trying to speak this stuff like they know. Watch this. Eat the bread, renew the libations on the altar, add to the offering. So this is ritual, the thing that those cats are scared of. When 1 minute they say we got to get back to our ancestors, be like our ancestors, then when we do it, they say, why y'all doing that? And that's spookism. We got to stop that double talk stuff. Well, we ain't doing the double talk. Y'all need to understand that we're built different than the other cats out there. Eat the bread. So we're talking about, it says, take good care of your monuments as a duty of your power. So this is talking about a slow, deliberate act. This is nothing that you rush through. So it's tending to your altars, tending to your ancestors. We know about this. How do we know about this? We know about it from our brothers and sisters in the Ifa tradition. They know about every morning you have to tend to your ancestral altars. Our Lukumi brothers and sisters know you have to tend to your ancestor and deity offerings. Santeria brothers and sisters know that they have to tend to their ancestor and deity altars. The Indian cousins know that they have to tend to their ancestor and deity offerings. Interesting with the Indian thing, with that they claim, that they accuse, that we love to imitate so much. In my studies of all these cultures, and I study this stuff I study each one of these cultures just as hard as I study the Kemetic culture, because I know what I'm talking about. I don't need no white folks validation or what is not our culture. I study these cultures and I know practitioners of these cultures. So these things are not my opinion. These are facts of people who live and are initiated in these traditions. So to go back to that Indian point that they claim that we like imitating so much, in the study of all these cultures that do pretty much the same thing, the Indian ritual of tending to the altar is more closer to the Kemetic than the rest of the African ones. I'll say that again. The Indian rite of addressing their deities is almost identical to what's known as the daily cultic rite in the ancient Kemetic text. Why? Because those ancient Egyptian or those ancient Hindus were part of an ancient culture called Kush. In Kemet, they believe that our tradition originated in the south. Those people were called Kush. There is a connection at some point in time there. So we'll move on from that. point. He also said this thing about Jehuti and the baboon, and he threw um, Yashir Rahatep on the screen, and he put up Muada Ashby, and he pretty much called them fraudulent because he had a picture of a scribe sitting in the seated posture with a baboon over the shoulder, and he showed the picture of various Kemites in the community, as well as Muada Ashby and Yashir Rahatep, with them in meditation posture. And because he said, because they didn't have the baboon over their shoulder or in their vicinity, they're fake. And I was like, that was the weakest point that I ever heard made. I was actually disappointed, but we're going to get into that. Let me see. This is from the Papyrus Salier. And check this out, this book, Maat, big up to Kemety University Press. Bill, what's his name? Neb and Brother Chaka, they do excellent work. African-centered scholars. So so we're gonna get to a point. So he threw that baboon up there and said that's Jehudi, and said this scribe is not meditating. This scribe is an accountant, and he quoted some white European or some European. Or it was a white European. I guess there's black Europeans. He quoted some European, and what he said is that person was a PhD, so he knows what he's talking about. I'm like, oh wow. So we feeding ourselves back into the system. So black folks can't translate and interpret our own culture. We need white PhDs to tell us what we're looking at. That's why I say big up to Kemety University Press, because they're African-centered scholars. They qualify. They know how to translate the Medu Neter. They look at ancient Kemet with African eyes, and therefore bringing forth African understanding. And no disrespect to that European scholar, because in fact he was right in what he was saying. Scribes are accountants. The word for scribe is sesh, but we remember there's a sacred duty and then there's a secular duty.
Right.
Why did these cats keep making us have to choose one interpretation over the other when it was both? Right. So in the temple, because everybody didn't know how to read and write, that was a special thing. So when you're in the temple, yes, that scribe, that sesh will be helping translate and interpret as well as write the Medu Neter. In the secular function, yes, he will be an accountant. Mm-hmm. So you don't have to pick whose interpretation is right. Both was going on. There was no separation, as the Hemet said, between church and state. So here it says about Jehuti, because it says Jehuti, science, justice, order is a well of sweet water for the one thirsting in the desert. Repeat, Jehuti, science, justice, order is a well of, it didn't say Jehuti, Lord of money, coin, business. It said Jehuti, science, justice, and order is a well of sweet water for the one thirsting in the desert. Now you should know that there was a metaphysical or spiritual component to their understanding of science. Now you should know that justice wasn't about telling people what is right or wrong. You understand that there's a spiritual component, that every situation has a ma'at.
Yes.
And you have to be a spiritual being, understanding spiritual ways of interpreting things to understand what is the ma'at of each unique circumstance. So there's not going to be any book to teach you how to decipher ma'at in each circumstance. You were supposed to have a certain level of wisdom, to be able to determine that. Mm-hmm. Science, justice, order is a well of sweet water for the one thirsting in the desert. The well remains sealed to the talkative. That speaks volumes to what we're speaking about now. Understand the metaphor of the well. It said the well of sweet water for one thirsting in the desert. Do y'all understand that one of my titles is Hem Neter, her title is Hemet Neter. The Madut, or the symbol for him, or Hemet and Hem Neter, is a well of water. You got to cast that bucket in that water. So there's layers to understanding this thing. We can't just get surface level stuff. It said the well remains sealed to the talkative. It opens for the silent. So me and Hemet are not the loudest proponents of the legacy, but the ones that don't live it is the loudest voices out there. Mm-hmm. So understand, so we're not dissing anybody. The ancestors are speaking how to determine people's character right here. So it opens for the silent. The silent one comes and finds the well. The disorderly are lost and their lives are empty. The disorderly are lost and their lives are empty. Meaning those who's talking crazy, talking out of line, talking off code. What is the last word to say? Their lives are empty. I'm not gonna say that brother or none of the rest of them lives are empty. Y'all got to determine that by watching how we conduct, how we deal with this. That's fair enough, right?
True.
True.
I'm gonna go to another quote. Y'all good or y'all done with this time? We should probably just end it, right?
Nah, go on, brother.
All right, watch this. The ship of loud fools gets stuck in the mud. The ship of the silent who prepare themselves sail with the wind. Their ship sails in all seasons. That speaks volumes too. The ship of the loud fools get stuck in the mud. Like, I ain't calling nobody no fool. The ancestors are helping us determine who's foolish and who's not foolish.
Right.
Get stuck in the mud. So I believe all of this criticism come from a lot of these other people in the other tiers of our community is because they're stuck.
That's right.
What happened is a lot of them will lack vision. They lack vision and they lack creativity. They hit a wall in their research and they didn't know what to do, and they upset that we got so much vision and creativity that we figured some stuff out because we don't believe in what they thought was spookism. We believe we are our ancestors. So if we are our ancestors, then it's up for us to figure it out, not for some white folks to tell us what it is. At some point, you're going to have to. So they hit a wall with their research. Oh, nobody knows how they were pronouncing it. Nobody knows how the rituals go. So they hit the wall, and we like, shoot. But like, Armin Cow, bend down real quick. Hasedi, get on his shoulders. Hasedi, let me get your hand in. I'm on Hasedi's shoulders, and we getting over the wall. We figuring it out.
Right.
And they're upset because we're figuring some stuff out. So they're stuck in check this out. So energy is currency, but a lot of people assign love with attention. So in their eyes, we're getting too much attention over here, and they're jealous. They're getting the type of attention they would like to get over there. They're looking at us, and we looking all happy in our pictures and stuff like that. Not to say that we're perfect and stuff, but we're good. And they're not getting that type of love. They're not. Is all you hear is strife coming from that community, and the cats is never getting along. And they seeing pictures of us smiling and kids and something. They're like, man, forget them, man. So they want this, and I get it. All this thing is always eventually going to come down to love and attention, and people getting the props that they feel that they're due. So what happened is those brothers picked the path, and that was self-fulfilling prophecy of the path that they picked, and we've picked the path, and there's going to be self-fulfilling prophecy on the path that we picked. So they wanted to follow in the footsteps of Dr. Ben, Dr. Clark. Who else? Give me names. Check out Amos Wilson. And check it out. Those guys wasn't popular in their time. Those men, they got they're more powerful in death than they were in life. They wasn't necessarily packing no room. So because they looked up to those people and they want to teach and do lectures and PowerPoints, presentations to bring honor to those scholars' name, and that's cool, and I support that. And in them doing that, I've learned a lot. But those brothers were stronger in death than they were in life. So now they hit that wall and they don't know what the next level is. And they're upset with us because we know how to get to our next level. It says the ship of the loud fool gets stuck in the mud. The ship of the silent, check it out, who have prepared themselves sails with the wind. So we're in the flow and we're in the know by way of what they call spookism. We're in the flow and in the know by way of what they call spookism, which is divinations, reading, meditation, yoga, and stuff like that.
That's the process by which you connect your divine intelligence with the grander divine intelligence so you can stay connected.
Correct. Their ship, check it out, their ship sails in all seasons. So now in martial arts, you have, what does it mean to you if I say Armin Cow is a seasoned warrior?
It means that he's taken martial arts for a long time and might even have like some experience in battle or like in combat.
Yeah, seasoned. So he's been through some stuff.
Yeah.
That he's qualified to be authority in that. So the Temple of Anu been around nearly 30 years. We're seasoned in this Kemetic legacy.
True.
We've been through, so no matter if it's summer, winter, spring, or fall, we're represented. That's why we do what we do well, and we look good doing it. And cats is upset that we look good doing it. So they're looking like, oh, they wearing all that white. They think it's something sweet out here. They not doing nothing for the people. They're mad because we handle our struggle better. We can handle our struggle with a smile because through our spookism, our reading, we already know what's coming at us, and we know how to adjust, we know how to move and navigate the situations appropriately, so we don't have to walk around with the long face, upset and being mad and still acting like you feel like it's cursed to be a black person. We're empowered. We're Africans that's empowered through the Kemetic legacy.
That's right. True.
I'm gonna close it up with the one last thing, with the whole the yoga. Y'all want to get into the yoga thing?
True.
Y'all want to talk about the yoga?
Yes, sir.
I know they ready here.
But Judy Ross said, "Keep going,
Okay.
chop heads."
Okay.
Yeah.
He said, "People speaking positive." You know, we try to stay positive. We try every now and then. You know, we fall off center, but that's the nature of life. You know, is to not veer too far away from the standard and stuff. And what I'm seeing out there, these cats is way off code.
Right.
And it just needs to be said. It needs to be said what our stance is. Sometimes, you know, picking a higher path, not saying nothing, increases negativity in the world. Because establishing righteousness is an action. It's an act. You have to be active. So if you're not steady building and establishing Maat in the world, then that means Isfet is proliferating. And a lot of our people don't know that they're agents of Isfet. So a lot of people are agents, not necessarily paid government agents, but they're paid or not paid. They're agents of Isfet.
Yeah.
You know, and then we can say that. So now they be saying that there's no such thing as Kemetic yoga. See, now these people that say that, they don't even practice yoga. They don't even know what yoga is. So they don't know what Kemetic yoga is and what it isn't.
Right.
They don't know what it is in contrast to Hindu yoga. So they don't do the Kemetic yoga and they don't do the Hindu yoga, yet they done cast aspersions and saying what y'all doing is fake and made up. So y'all ready to deal with it? It ain't even that hard to deal with.
It's really not.
Let's do it.
It ain't even hard. So we'll go back to language, since, like, according to the session, Nasuwt and his ilk of people, they will say that DNA,
Language
language is the DNA of culture.
Yes.
So let's go with the word yoga. Yoga comes from the Hindu word yuka. It means to yoke back to the divine, to yoke back to God. I'll repeat, yoga comes from yuga, which means to yoke back to the divine. Now check this out. The word religion means to tie back, still implying to tie back to the divine. So some foolish people in our community say, oh, religion is to tie you back, to hold you back. Like, that's not stop projecting false definitions on.
Right.
When they created that definition, it was created with the understanding. It was talking about binding you back from sinning, that crazy, from adultery or whatever it is that you're doing, is pulling you back to the source, pulling you back to the divine. So watch this. Yoga is the religion of the Hindus, while religion is the yoga of the West. Did y'all hear that? It's the same thing. So yoga is the religion of the Hindus, while religion per se is the yoga of the West. It's the same thing, both to yoke back to the divine. Now watch this. We have that concept also in the Kemetic tradition.
Right.
It's called Smai Tawi. That's what Baba Haru constantly talks about. Smai Tawi, which is the unification of the two lands.
Yeah.
We could say the unification of the higher and lower self, whatever it is, it's all metaphoric language. So we have that. And the image of that is literally Haru and Satesh tying a knot, which is the unification. Okay? So you have to understand that yoga is not those exercises. Yoga is a consciousness.
Yes.
Yoga is a philosophy and a consciousness. Those people need to understand that when they need to understand it before they cast aspersions on what is yoga and who's copying who. So yoga is Kemetic. I ain't gonna say we necessarily created everything, but that concept, that construct is in our culture.
Yes.
So let's go with it. So you have Haru, you have people like, well, that's politics. So that's a political yoga. It's a political unification. So you have Haru and Satesh, but guess what? Haru and Satesh is a cultural concept. Guess what? Haru and Satesh is not just a cultural concept, it's a theological concept. And doesn't it originate with our people that they say as above, so below, or whatever? So in order for this thing to penetrate the culture, to become a political construct, it was something that they personally internalized. So the Nasuwt Biti had to be the one that unified Haru and Satesh within himself, to give him the authority to establish it as the law of the land. So the Kemetic people had yoga.
Right.
They need to meditate on it. They need to really reflect on that, breathe on that. So now, check this out. This thing that people call yoga, that they're attributing to the Hindus, how old would y'all say that is? What would be your guesstimate? What will be y'all guesstimate?
Yeah, I don't know, a couple thousand years.
2,000
What about
years.
You said 2,000.
2,000.
Mark, are you the yoga master?
Thousands. I'd say the same like that. Thousands of years, 2,000.
Okay.
Like that.
Watch this. That yoga that we now considering yoga in the West is only 1,000 years old. No more than 1,500 years old. So it's approximately old as Islam, and we don't consider Islam ancient. Around that 2,000 year mark, out before 2,000 or beyond 2,000 years, that's usually considered ancient. After that, not so ancient. So yoga, as we know it, only goes back on record 1,000 some odd years. The version that we see now started in about 1935. It's from Iyengar yoga, and it's about approximately 150 postures. Then you got, who was that guy, Bikram? He came in the 90s, I think, and then we find out that he didn't even create his yoga. He got it from somebody else that came from around the same 1935 era, but they got it around 1,000. Yeah, about 1,000 years ago from somebody named Goraksha. And Goraksha, as a Hindu, he got it from a Tibetan. So it wasn't even indigenous to the Hindu tradition. So, and it started off with, check it out, it started off with 24 postures. Now they got several hundred postures, started off with 24 postures. What point am I making? When that was introduced to the Hindus, they didn't even accept it. They were like, get out of here with that nonsense. The yoga was meant to be like an exercise system to strengthen your body for long ritualistic or long hours of meditation. So the Hindus they originally didn't like that, because they reminds me of the Greeks. So when Pythagoras and all them came from Kemety and brought that stuff back to Greeks, the Greeks were like, get out of here with that, man, you crazy. Nowadays the Greeks are like, oh, Pythagoras, Plato, and now those are their heroes. So the Hindus did that same thing with yoga. When it was first being introduced, it was considered pseudo. Well, you know how we be calling pseudo stuff now. They was like, get that pseudo stuff out. That stuff, man. And why? You know, one guy said it just meant to cause you pain because they be doing all the contortions and stuff like that. So my point I'm making is that thing developed into this science that they got as a science and certification program now. So why is it okay for the Hindus to develop their culture to the point where now you got to go through them to get certified to do your thing? So they grew as a culture. So when I'm listening to Shaka Akmos and Brother Reggie and all them, they're cheating us out of our right to grow our culture.
Right.
Because they're stuck, because they lack vision and creativity, because they can't figure it out. And we like, nah, we'll figure it out. So now let us go on. So they think we're doing lookership. They like, oh, they think we're still imposters. So now I just told you, there's on record, it doesn't go it doesn't go past 1,000 years or 1,500 years. Y'all saw that picture of Geb, Nut, Shu. You know, the traditional Shu is here. Geb is doing that thing to the side, and Nut is bending over. That picture goes back 1,500. So it's a whole 1,000 years earlier than what yoga is documented. So now let's look at it. So people are like, well, it's not yoga. It's just, it just happens to be. You're like, really? So that thing that Geb is doing happens to be what they call in Hindu yoga. Remember, 1,000 years later, now that's called the spinal twist. Now, remember, Geb is the personification. Geb is the personification of the earth, right?
Yeah.
So in that posture, you have to be on the earth. Your butt is on the earth. So they say the earth, but the earth is flat, though, right? We're gonna go with the round earth is on it. So the earth is supposed to be a globe, and the earth spins on what's known as an axis. The earth is supposed to have its polarity, right? So now here we have this posture that we call in our system the Geb posture. So you on the ground doing this, so you have a spinal column, right? And that spine is your axis, that spine is your pole. So you turn one way and breathe, then you turn the other way and breathe. So the earth has what's known as centrifugal and centripetal force. So when you turn into the right and breathing, and you turn into the left and breathing, that causes what's known as a piezoelectric effect from the bones twisting and turning. So that causes shifts, changes, and transformation in your electromagnetic field, also known as the aura. Okay. So they be like, oh, that's just what they call, that's just a coincidence. Then how come Geb is also in that other posture? So he's not just in that one he's twisted, he's in that other posture where his feet is over his head, known in Indian system is the plow.
Wow. Two.
Then you have Shu doing what's looking like breathing exercises, Qigong exercises. Then you have Nut over him, which is corresponds to what they call in Indian yoga as the downward dog. Now, in the metaphysic theology, Nut is said to swallow Ra and gives birth to him. So it goes through her mouth, and they got the 12 things on the 12 stars, the
on the
Seba
body.
on her body, and she gives birth to Ra. So now in metaphysics, we understand that we have 12 meridian channels, at least 12 meridian channels, and 10 of them in your 10 fingers and in your 10 feet. So when you bend over, that blood from your feet goes to your head. Then when you get back up, that energy circulates back, and blood is life. The life force circulates inside your bloodstream. So that is the equivalent of circulating Ra through the 12 moments in your body. Shu, the root to the word Shu is the root to the word Shuti. What is Shuti? What is a Shuti?
Feather.
A feather. It means the feather that's on the scales of Maat. So remember they said, so the heart has to be weighed with the feather because the heart has to be found to be light as a feather. So Shuti or Shu, the root to that is light. So not just light as in weight, but light itself. So Shu is the principle of light. Now in the Hindu thing, they said, you don't, remember everybody gets into this breathe down your sun, and everybody's doing breathe, move, breathe. This is not about oxygen. It's about what they call prana. And prana is the element of light inside the air. Is photons, and photons are light particles. So you're not just breathing air, you're breathing photons, light particles. That's the principle of Shu. Shu is doing the equivalent of breathing exercises, Qigong type of exercise. The same in Qigong, that's talking about light. Now guess what? So you would never understand that if you never practice yoga. So when you don't know or practice ritual, you don't even understand what you're looking at sometimes. So now let us have a moment of honesty. Give respect to Yashir Rahatep and Muada Ashby, because as Africans, they went and got initiated into the yoga system, and they saw with African eyes. They came back to our culture and our tradition. Now they saw things totally different. Now they were like, oh, that's different, while the rest is waiting for some white folks to tell them what they looking at. You got people that now got shown a way of looking at things. So now they're not stealing anything from the Hindu. Now they're able to look different. Now they be like, oh, we have those concepts in our culture also. Right. That's what they did. So to be honest, what Yashir and Muada Ashby did, they learned how to teach it systematically. That's what we can't say we got on the wall. So you see Nut Geb and Tefnut and all that, but it's not in context. We like, there's no text to say breathe this way and this posture does such and such, because that's something that needs to be. Remember, they tell you have to have a teacher in yoga. You can't just decide. If you don't have a teacher, you're just doing some stretching posture. Remember, before the Hindus got it, it was some monks up in a cave doing it. So it had to be transmitted from teacher to student. So now, once again, so now when you're looking at that frieze, you're looking at, most people are looking at it as an uninitiated person. So you don't know what you're talking about or looking at anywhere, unless somebody who practices the meditative arts tells you what you're looking at. So they learned how to systematically teach it, because that's what wasn't on the wall. So now, check the beauty in this. So now, back 40 years ago, Ivan Van Serter wrote The African Presence in Early Asia. And he made a lot of implications of African presence that influenced and inspired a lot of these traditions that went into flourish into these great nations that we now respect today. So now, those nations went on and they developed yoga, meditation, qigong, and all of these things. So now here we are waking up out of our stupor, and now those people that we once inspired and influenced are now there to inspire and influence us back into our culture. That's Maat. We should be happy of that. We should be allowed to explore that. And don't let these cats tell you can't be inspired by other people's example, because ancient Africans didn't think that. Shoot, modern Africans don't think that. We're syncretists by nature.
Because there's no separation. It's not either or. It's yes, it's plus and.
Yeah, so there you go. So we dealt with primary sources or references, and we dealt with things coming from black African scholars who see things and interpret things with an African lens, and we don't have to lean on Europeans. So with that being said, I've spoken on the matter, and I want to say to that brother and the rest of the brothers, next time y'all feel some sort of way, I expect a call. I don't expect to hear it on Sonnet or on nobody else's thing. I'm sorry, Nasuwt.
That's it right now. The phone just started
My
ringing.
ancestors got jokes. So I expect the call. Don't got my number, inbox me. Can't inbox me, email us at the temple. If not, we all know there's 7 degrees of separation in our community. We all know somebody who knows somebody. So it's not hard for us to connect. We don't need to be displaying this poor character in front of our community. I'm charging us to be better. So I said my piece. I feel like I've spoken about it intelligently. I felt like I did it maturely, and I feel like I done it in respect of him as a man. And so now it's up to the community to decide who's really true men, who's really adults. This ain't even just about men. It's also about women. It's also about us as a community. And so we're about to see what these teachings really do for those of us that's claiming that we're teaching and stuff. So let our actions speak for themselves. So I've spoken to him that take us out of here. Buy the new ambience.
Yeah. Pick up your copy of A New Ambiance, available on our website as well as on Amazon Music, Tidal, Spotify, iMusic, iTunes. Well, I say iMusic. It's available everywhere. I was just gonna echo your closing sentiment in honor of the Nasuwt that governed this year. We continue to do the work to ground ourselves in our culture in order that we may fly and that we may exist in divine greatness and excellence. That is our divine charge this year, to keep our feet on the ground, but also to continue to soar and to plan for our evolution, our growth, and our excellence. To expect our excellence.
Sure.
Do on that too. All right. We appreciate.
It's worth at least 5.
We appreciate your energy and your presence today. For those of you who are able and willing to send a donation to help us to continue the work that we do, you can do so on Cash App, which is $Temple of Anu. You can also send a donation by PayPal to our email address, templeofanu@gmail.com. We appreciate those donations because we understand that Maat is reciprocity. The energy that we've given you all today, and you all are giving it back to us in the form of currency or money through those donations. We feel that energy, and we use that energy to further our work in the modern time, and just continue to grow and to continue to realize the divine vision that our ancestors have for us and that we have for ourselves through our nectar. I do want to answer a question that came up in the chat. I think it was a sister who asked about a co-living comedic community, and I want to point you to the Raseki Arts Temple. Moot Kajara Nia Yanebehet has been raising money for a retreat center in West Virginia, where she would like to build a community of comedic people on that land to live there. So please reach out to Mukajara and find out how you can support her vision of a co-living comedic community and be a part of that if that's something that you want to do. I just want to direct your energy there if that's something that you're truly interested in, so that you all can collaborate with her on that. Again, last time, we thank you for your donations and for your energy. We will see you back here in this space 2 weeks from...
Excuse me. One last... So to be fair, in the spirit of Maat, so you don't be one-sided like how they be one-sided over there. So I encourage you all to go listen to his presentation. It's on Sonnetta's platform, and you decide, was we Maatic in our response? You know, just to be fair enough, you need to get both sides of the story.
True. And so lastly, we'll be back here in 2 weeks for our next regularly scheduled communion. We always do a dual stream, both on YouTube and on Facebook Live at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And so we hope to see you all here again in 2 weeks from today, today is the 4th. So that is Sunday, April 18th. Thank you, Armin Cow. Sunday, April 18th at 1 p.m. Eastern. We will see you all then. Do our net to everybody. Show you what's up.
Kemety.
Turning it down.